The greatest lie they told you about the past isn't about kings or battles. It's that your ancestors were fools. 99% of people believe the medieval peasant was a simple, mud-caked brute, living a life of utter ignorance. This is a comforting lie, crafted to make you believe that progress is a straight line, and that the world is safer and smarter now. The truth is far more dangerous. You are waking up. The air in the wattle and daub hut is a physical thing. A cold soup of wood smoke, damp earth, and the sweet, cloying smell of human sleep. You can smell the damp seeping from stones that haven't seen the sun in 800 years. Then you feel it. A cold draft, thin and sharp as a needle, against the back of your neck. It's coming from a gargoyle carved into the base of an archway, low to the ground. It's not like the others high above, the ones meant to ward off evil. This one is small, hidden, and it looks misshapen, flawed. Its stone mouth is twisted in a silent scream, one eye bulging, the other a hollow pit. A mistake, you might think. The one substance that proves a single person's mind is more powerful than a king's entire army. Ink. But here, in your world, a woman can be the vessel for God's wisdom. She is not a wife or a mother, but a teacher. This single fact is so dangerous, it could get every person in this room skinned alive. She doesn't speak of original sin or the fires of hell. The church uses that fear to sell salvation, to control kings and commoners alike. Esclarmonde's words are a quiet river, washing that fear away. She teaches that the material world, the world of pain, of plagues, of kings and popes, is a prison for the soul, a flawed creation. It doesn't always need an army. Sometimes all it needs is a convenient crisis and the will to erase those who remember a different world. You saw the proof, a coded financial ledger passed to you by a terrified Vatican clerk just before he vanished. It detailed payments from the Holy See to a specific Benedictine abbey, funds earmarked for special acquisitions. The acquisitions weren't relics or books, they were people. The rectangle of light is now just a sliver. The air is thin, hot, and smells of your own sweat. He is looking directly at you, and for a terrifying second, his eyes hold not the gaze of a stranger, but the cold, appraising stare of a co-conspirator who now sees you for what you truly are. A loose end. It's the same principle as a modern encrypted messaging app, a peer-to-peer system built on trust, running on the invisible bandwidth of women's prescribed lives. And this changes everything we think we know about one of history's greatest mysteries. For 700 years, treasure hunters have searched for the lost treasure of the Cathars, supposedly smuggled from the fortress of Montségur, moments before it fell. They dream of a golden chalice, of forgotten jewels. They are looking for the wrong thing. The women of Montségur did smuggle a treasure to safety, but it wasn't gold. It was something infinitely more valuable. A single bead of condensation traces a path down the woven wall. The drip, drip, drip against the dirt floor, the only sound in the pre-dawn silence. Fingernails scraping against the rough wool of your blanket feel impossibly loud. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in fog. Your town blames goats for the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages. But what they don't want you to know is that beneath the floorboards of your mind, there is a secret. It isn't gold. It's a hand-carved wooden tablet, wrapped in oilcloth, marked with symbols the priest cannot read. A moment of clumsiness from a long-dead apprentice, but it's not a mistake. You lean closer, and the draft becomes a focused, whispering stream of air. Your fingertips trace the rough-hewn stone around its mouth, and you feel it. A faint scraping sound, like fingernails on slate. The stone is different here. It's a marker, a key, a signpost on a forbidden map. The anonymous creator, the mason who knelt in this very spot centuries ago, knew exactly what he was doing. The church told you knowledge was a candle, a single flame held by the priest to illuminate God's word. They lied. The truth is, knowledge was a fire, and they were terrified you would learn how to start one of your own. You are not in a grand library. There is no scent of aged leather and gold leaf. The air here smells of damp earth, smuggled wine, and fear. Your fingers, stained with dirt and lie, tremble as you unroll the scrap of vellum. This is it, a piece of the Glimmer. It's not a book, it's a pulse. Your true home is the realm of spirit, and your life is not a single desperate trial for heaven or hell. It is a classroom. You have lived before, and you will live again, learning each time until your soul is pure enough to return to the true God of love. Reincarnation. It is the secret that completely dismantles the church's entire machine of control. If there is no eternal hell to fear, what power does a priest's threat have? She raises a simple loaf of unsalted bread. She does not claim it is the flesh of a dying god. You press your ear to the cold stone, your fingernails scraping against the rough-hewn surface. You can hear the monk's steady breathing on the other side. He is calm. This is just a task for him, a holy duty. Thud. The last stone slides into place. The light is gone. Darkness. Absolute. A silence so profound it rings in your ears. This is it. The end of your air. The end of your life. The end of the truth. You slide down the wall, your body trembling, and wait for the crushing weight of oblivion. The lie they sold you is of a hunched old man, mad with greed, trying to turn lead into gold. It's a convenient story, a caricature created by the very powers that feared him most. What 99% of people never learn is that the real alchemist wasn't chasing wealth. He was committing the ultimate heresy. He was chasing the truth. And in your world, truth is more dangerous than any poison. You are in a cellar, not a grand laboratory. The air is thick with the metallic tang of boiled mercury and the sweet, cloying scent of distilling herbs. It was the master codex, the key to their entire language of thread, the Rosetta Stone for their secret library of suppressed science, medicine, and philosophy. It was the medieval equivalent of an unbreakable encryption key. And in their final, breathtaking act of defiance, they hid the directions to its location in the most audacious place imaginable, not buried in a field, but woven into the most famous, most studied, and therefore most perfectly overlooked historical document of their time. It's a silent, shared knowledge of the stars and the soil, a guide to herbs that can silence a fever or stop a bleeding. It's part of a vast, unwritten library they called the Glimmer. This knowledge was a direct threat to the church and nobility who built their power on a monopoly of information. An educated peasant was more dangerous than a Viking raider. This is the central conspiracy we will unravel. The Dark Ages were not an accident of ignorance, but a deliberate, systematic, and brutal suppression of knowledge. He was sending a message to those who knew how to look, a signal flare across the abyss of time. What truth does it point to? hidden within the very walls of the institution that would have burned him for knowing it. What secret is so profound, so dangerous, that its location could only be marked by a monster's silent scream? A living network of forbidden thoughts passed from hand to hand in the dead of night, a whispered rebellion against the crushing weight of ignorance. On this piece of animal skin, no thicker than your thumbnail, is a diagram, not of a saint, not of an angel, but of a seed. It shows how to cut a furrow in a spiral, how to mix crushed bone into the soil, how to read the moon for planting. This is the secret they don't want you to know. Your starvation is not God's will. It's a tool of control. It is just bread, a symbol of community and life. You listen, mesmerized, to the soft, fibrous tear as she breaks the loaf. The sound is intimate, reverent, an ASMR trigger for the soul. This is your communion. You eat no meat, for you believe all life is sacred, part of the same cycle of rebirth. The crusaders who hunt you call this devil worship. They spread rumors that you hold depraved orgies in the dark, that you kiss the hind end of a cat. It's the timeless strategy of power. Discredit, demonize, and then destroy. But then, a new sound. So faint you think it's a phantom of your dying mind. A dry, scratching whisper from a tiny, unseen crack in the new mortar. It is not the monk. It is a voice you do not know. A desperate, urgent hiss that cuts through the suffocating black. Brother Thomas, did you hide the pages? Above you, the heavy boots of the Lord's men patrol the castle bailey, each footstep a hammer blow against your heart. You don't work by the light of a grand furnace, but by the nervous flicker of a single tallow candle. Its greasy light makes your shadow writhe on the damp stone walls, a monstrous twin mocking your secrecy. Your fingers, stained black with silver nitrate and yellow with sulfur, tremble as you grind dried belladonna in a stone mortar. The rhythmic scrape of stone on stone is the only prayer you know. They call your work transmutation. A single anomalous thread in the 70-meter-long Baye tapestry points the way, not to a chest of coins, but to the last hidden sanctuary where that knowledge still waits. Just last year, an excavation of a 14th-century plague pit in London uncovered a scorched scrap of parchment clutched in a skeletal hand. The text on it wasn't a prayer. It was a chemical formula. What was it for, and why was someone murdered to protect it? If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. The lie they buried in the mass graves of 1349 is written in bone, and modern science, sifting through the dirt of East Smithfield in London, has finally learned to read it. What they found there, in the jumbled skeletons of the rich and the poor, shatters the one story you were told about the Black Death. The story of divine wrath, of helpless peasants falling in the streets while the wealthy fled to their country estates. It's a convenient lie, designed to keep you afraid, designed to keep you praying, because the bones don't lie. Following this diagram could double, even triple your family's yield. It means your children might see their 5th winter. It means you might have enough grain left over to trade for something other than a prayer. It means freedom. You press your ear against the cold stone wall, listening. All you hear is the wet, rasping sound of your own breathing, a frantic counterpoint to the slow drip of water somewhere in the darkness. This is the soundtrack of your real education. When you cannot defeat an idea, you assassinate the character of those who hold it. We see it today when governments label activists and whistleblowers as enemies of the state to turn the public against them and justify the violence to come. Esclamon's eyes, clear and calm in the flickering light, find yours. "They will come for us," she says, her voice never rising, yet it cuts through the silence. "They will destroy our castles and burn our books. They will erase our names from the world. But a truth, once known, can never be truly destroyed. The holy relic you are forced to touch is cold iron, but the lie you are about to speak is colder still. Your knees ache on the stone floor, each link of your new male coif digging into your scalp like a tiny, insistent tooth. The air is thick with incense and fear, a perfume designed to make men feel small in the presence of God and their masters. The bishop drones on about justice, protecting the weak, honoring the king. You feel the words bounce off your armor, hollow and meaningless. They whisper that you seek the philosopher's stone to turn base metals into gold. Let them. It's a perfect cover story, a language of symbols and codes designed to keep you from the stake. The church and the nobility want the world to see you as a greedy fool, because the reality is something they cannot afford to admit. You are not a magician. You are the secret research and development department of a revolution that hasn't happened yet. The transmutation they fear isn't about metal. It's about people. The box is supposed to be empty, but your hand, brushing against the lead-lined bottom, tells a different story. It's not the cold, solid finality of metal you feel. It's a seam, a faint, almost imperceptible line that whispers of something more, something hidden beneath the accepted truth. Your heart hammers a frantic rhythm against your ribs, a drumbeat in the tomb-like silence of the Portuguese monastery basement. The Glimmer fragment, with its impossible drawings of the human heart, now feels like a decoy, a bright lure to distract from the real secret. Let's begin, and live the life they never got to finish. But be warned, some truths about the past are harder to forget than others. The nobleman and the baker, the lady and the washerwoman, they died at almost the exact same rate. Wealth was not a shield. Fleeing was not a cure. Something else determined who lived and who died. And that secret was so dangerous, the church spent the next 700 years trying to make sure you never learned it. The air in your village is thick with the metallic taste of fear. It's a taste you know better than bread. Every toll of the church bell is a countdown. Another soul departed. Another family broken. 99% of people will live and die within the confines of what the church and the lords allow them to know. They will believe sickness is a punishment for sin, not the result of the unseen biters that the Glimmer manuscript on hygiene claims live in fouled water and rotting meat. They will pay a tenth of their life's work to a church that hoards knowledge in locked rooms, written in a language they can never understand. You are committing heresy, not by denying God, but by seeking to understand His world without a priest as your jailer. She speaks of Montségur, the last great fortress, a mountain sanctuary. She speaks of the treasure hidden within its walls. The agents of the Pope believe it is gold, or the Holy Grail itself. You know better. The Cathars reject all material wealth. Our treasure, she whispers, and the word hangs in the air, heavy as a shroud, is a testament, a story, the one they have spent 1,000 years trying to bury. A truth so simple and so pure it would crack the foundations of Rome and prove their entire faith is built upon a lie. Your shadow, cast by a single guttering candle, writhes against the wall, a dark, misshapen giant. It looks more honest than you feel. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe a toothache is a demon trying to claw its way out of your jaw. Your world is held together by superstition and the sharp edge of a sword. Welcome to the real Middle Ages. You are being forged into a weapon, a beautiful, gleaming, consecrated weapon. The lead you are trying to change is the ignorant, starving populace, trapped in a cycle of fear and faith. The gold is an enlightened society, one that understands crop rotation, metallurgy, and medicine. Your hidden workshop is a forbidden university of one. Last month, you discovered an alloy of iron and carbon that holds an edge 3 times longer than a standard feudal axe. With it, a farmer could clear a field in a week, not a month. You work your fingernails into the crack, the grit of centuries lodging beneath them. The sound is a dry scrape against stone, the only noise in a world that has shrunk to this cold, dark space, and the impossible object in your hands. With a soft, sickening thump of displaced air, the false bottom lifts. There is no treasure beneath. No gold, no jewels. Only a book. It's small, bound in dark, unstamped leather, and it feels cold, impossibly cold to the touch. The lie they sold you was the sound. They want you to imagine the gut-wrenching scrape of a saw against bone, the unholy scream cut short by a splash of wine on a dirty rag. But what if the deadliest sound in the medieval world wasn't a saw, but a sermon? What if the real horror wasn't the surgery, but the reason you were forbidden from having it? You are lying on a stone slab, but it isn't an altar of sacrifice. It's a table. The priest tells you it is God's judgment. He demands you gather in the cold stone church, shoulder to shoulder, breath mingling with breath, to pray for mercy. He says faith is your only shield. But you have seen the carts piled high with the faithful dead. You have heard the weeping from the villages that do nothing but pray. 99% of people don't know this, but the most dangerous thing during the plague wasn't the sickness. It was the cure the church was selling. This is the medieval equivalent of the war for a free and open internet, fought with ink and courage instead of code and servers. It's a battle between those who believe information must be controlled and those who believe it must be shared. And the price for being on the wrong side is fire. Centuries from now, they will find the proof. In Portugal, they'll unseal a Cistercian monastery, bricked up since the 16th century, a time capsule of fear and faith. In the crypt, beneath the bones of forgotten abbots, archaeologists will find a small, lead-lined box. She doesn't say what it is. No one ever speaks its name aloud. But you know it is the reason for the genocide. It is a corporate takeover, written in your people's blood. A dog barks, sharp and frantic, in the street above. Then another. Then the sound you have been dreading every moment of your life, the distant, splintering crash of a door, followed by the heavy, iron-shod tramp of boots on the cobblestones, growing closer and closer. And 99% of the people who will ever hear of you will hear the songs, the epics, the glorious chronicles your Lord will pay a scribe to invent. They will never know the truth of your first real lesson in what it means to be a knight. It wasn't on a training ground. It was in a muddy village last autumn. The lesson wasn't about swordplay. It was about a farmer who couldn't pay his tax. You remember the sound his leg made when your mentor, Sir Guillaume, kicked it sideways at the knee. The month before, you successfully distilled willow bark into a potent liquid that can break a deadly fever overnight, a power the priests claim belongs only to God. What they don't want you to know is that this knowledge is the ultimate threat. The entire power structure of your world is built on scarcity and ignorance. The nobles need serfs to be weak and dependent. The church needs the populace to believe that suffering is holy and that only prayer can heal them. Your discoveries threaten to make people strong, healthy, and independent. The air grows heavy, thick with the scent of dry ink, old vellum, and something else. The metallic tang of fear, an odor that has somehow soaked into the very pages. This is the document that was never meant to be found. This is the secret the earth itself was meant to keep. You open it. The pages don't crackle with age. They are supple, perfectly preserved by the lead. The script is not the hurried scrawl of a rebel or a heretic. It is a work of chilling monastic precision. The air, thick with the scent of incense and beeswax, also carries the clean, sharp smell of boiled wine and crushed poppy. A man in a simple white robe, a Cistercian monk, leans over you. His face is calm, his hands are steady. In one, he holds a tool of polished steel and wood. You feel no terror. The milky liquid they gave you to drink has wrapped your mind in a soft, heavy fog. You hear a low chant, a Latin prayer, but it's not for your soul. It's for focus. His focus, a cure that profited from your death through last rites and desperate bequests of land, ensuring the church grew richer with every corpse they buried. But in your village, a different sermon is being preached. It's a sermon whispered at midnight, over flickering tallow lamps. A sermon of forbidden knowledge. It's called the Plague Orders, an illegal, unspoken law that passes from one terrified family to the next. You don't write it down. You don't speak of it to outsiders. You simply do it. Not for a saint's finger or a splinter of the cross. Inside, perfectly preserved, will be a fragment just like the one you're holding. But it won't show a seed. It will show a human heart, rendered in shocking, impossible detail. You can see the chambers, the valves, the great arteries curling like serpents. It is a drawing of anatomical precision that official history says won't exist for another 200 years. It is the evidence that this network, your network, was real. That the knowledge was not lost, but hunted, suppressed, murdered. You trace the drawing on your vellum. The flame of the lamp shivers, and in the sudden panic of shadows, you see the pure terror on every face. They have found you. The hunt is over, and the secret in the mountain is the only thing left worth dying for. A wet, fibrous snap, like a green branch breaking. You remember the farmer's wife screaming, a sound that carried no weight, that meant less than the bleating of a lost sheep. Your job was to stand there, a silent wall of polished steel, your presence the only explanation needed. This is justice. This is order. This is the peace of the land. This is the secret they will never tell you in the songs. Chivalry is the most successful marketing campaign in human history. It's a brand identity for a protection racket. It's the same timeless fear that echoes in our modern world, in the frantic debates to regulate artificial intelligence or genetic engineering. The powerful don't fear the new technology. They fear losing their monopoly on it. They fear the day the masses no longer need them. For years, you have chased the final piece of the puzzle, the elixir of life. You have failed, of course. Immortality remains a fantasy. But in your search, you stumbled upon something else, something real, something you never intended to create. You unstopper a small, lead-lined vial. Every letter is a black, perfect soldier in a line of ink. The title on the first page makes your blood run cold. Index mortuorum pro custodes veritatis. The index of the dead for the guardians of truth. This isn't the knowledge of the oppressed. This is the ledger of the oppressors. You turn the first page. A name, Alaric of Ghent. A profession, mason and architect. A location, Bruges. And then a date, followed by 2 words in Latin, casus fortuitus. An accident. You feel a strange, dull pressure at your temple, a vibration that travels down your jaw. You hear a sound, a low, rhythmic, grinding whisper. It is the sound of a carefully handled drill boring a hole into your skull. And it is the sound of you surviving. This is the secret they buried in holy ground. 99% of people believe medieval surgery was a death sentence. The main road into town is barricaded with a felled oak tree and a sharpened log fence. No one in, no one out. This act alone is heresy, a direct defiance of the priest who calls it a devil's pact, a turning away from God. Let him call it what he wants. For the first time in a month, the death cart from the next valley rumbled past your barricade without stopping. The silence it left behind was the most beautiful sound you have ever heard. This is the knowledge of the Glimmer, the old ways passed down from your grandmother. It's a simple design for a water wheel, one that doesn't require the Lord's permission or the church's tithe to build. It's independence, drawn in charcoal and berry juice. At the very bottom, almost invisible in the grain of the skin, is a tiny mark, a spider's web, with a single intricate knot at its center. It is the only signature you will ever know, the ghost at the heart of this web. The one who risks everything to gather these threads of truth and weave them into a lifeline for the common man. They call this person the Weaver. They buried the secret in your bones, hoping you'd never dig it up. The lie they told you is a simple one, and it smells like rot, disease, and human filth. Close your eyes and you can picture it. The mud-caked medieval peasant, teeth missing, skin crawling with fleas, living in a hovel that reeks of death. This image of the Dark Ages is one of the most successful pieces of propaganda ever created. It's a ghost story, whispered for centuries to make you feel enlightened, superior, and safe. But 99% of what you've been told is a deliberate fabrication. It's the same way a modern corporation might fund an art gallery to make you forget the poison they dump in the river, or how a military sells honor and adventure to mask the grim mathematics of death. The powerful have always known that you don't need to be good, you just need a good story. And your life is about to become the bloody ink that writes it. The tournaments you fought in? They weren't sport. Inside is a clear, oily liquid that seems to drink the candlelight. You've tested it. A drop on wood creates a puff of acrid smoke. A drop on iron leaves a hissing, bubbling scar. It is an acid of terrifying potency. But its true secret was revealed last night, in the dark, when you dripped a single measure onto a loose piece of mortar you chipped from the wall. There was no dramatic flash. You remember the story from old guild records, a master mason who fell from his own cathedral spire. A tragedy. But here, in this book, his name is the first on a list. You turn another page. Isabetta di Firenze, healer and anatomist. Cause of death, febris, a fever. 99% of historical records call it the sweating sickness that took her. This book calls it an entry in a ledger. Page after page, the truth unfolds like a shroud. A century of Europe's brightest minds. All laid out in perfect, damning script. The shocking reality, confirmed by healed skeletal remains found in their abbeys, is that these monks were achieving success rates in skull trepanation, drilling into the head to relieve pressure on the brain, as high as 70%. They understood the poppy's power to dull pain. They knew the antiseptic properties of wine. They practiced a level of surgical hygiene that the official doctrine of the Church had deliberately labeled heretical and banned from public practice. Because outside these consecrated walls, the Church taught that your sickness was a punishment from God, a stain on your soul. The ways the Church calls witchcraft: you scrub your hands, your floors, and your doorframes with a mixture of lye and sharp, stinging vinegar until your skin is raw. The clean, acrid smell is a weapon against the sweet stench of decay that haunts the air. When your youngest child develops a fever, you don't run to the priest for last rites. You follow the old wisdom. You boil yarrow and mint into a bitter tea that makes him sweat. And you press a poultice of crushed garlic and honey onto the terrifying black swelling in his armpit. No one knows their name, their face, or if they are a man or a woman, a peasant or a renegade priest. They are only a symbol and a promise that you are not alone in the dark. A sudden, heavy scraping sound from the alley outside makes your blood turn to ice. You extinguish your tallow lamp with wet fingers, plunging the room into absolute black. The vellum feels like a burning coal in your hand. The knowledge can free you, but first, you have to survive the night. The shocking truth is that the person living in the year 1200 was likely cleaner, with better teeth and more access to public sanitation than their great-great-great-grandchild living in the industrial grime of 18th century London. You are walking through the narrow streets of a medieval town. Forget the fantasy of open sewers. Instead, you hear the steady gurgle of clean water. It flows through a complex system of stone-carved channels and lead pipes. A feat of engineering archaeologists are still unearthing beneath cities like London and Florence. They were live-fire war games, a marketplace for violence, where you could legally shatter the shield arm of a rival lord's best soldier. While the nobility placed bets, you can still feel the ghost of a splintered lance hitting your helm, the world going white-hot noise, the coppery taste of blood filling your mouth. That was not a game. It was a message. The bishop anoints your brow with oil. It feels greasy and foul. He holds the sword over your head. You are supposed to see God's light reflected in the polished steel. Just a low, insistent hiss, the sound of solid matter surrendering its form, a sound that promises to do the same to the foundations of a fortress. This is the true elixir, not a potion to grant one man eternal life, but a recipe that can bring a 1,000-year dynasty to its knees in a single night. You hold in this small, sweating vial the power to unmake the world, to dissolve the very walls they keep your masters safe. This is the alchemy they were truly afraid of. Not turning lead to gold, but turning stone to dust. Navigators who charted new stars, weavers who developed impossible looms, alchemists who were on the verge of real chemistry, healers who understood the body in ways the church called heresy. Each one, a light extinguished. Each death, a meticulously recorded lie. Plague, misadventure, lost at sea. It's a kill list, a systematic continent-wide purge of genius, orchestrated by an invisible hand, moving from the shadows of the holiest places. This is the irrefutable proof of the silent plague. It's not a conspiracy theory anymore. It's a receipt. The only cure was prayer, penance, and payment to the church. Your suffering was their currency. Your death was a testament to God's will. Your survival at the hands of a village healer with a pouch of herbs was a threat. It was never about ignorance. It was about information warfare. Why was a village woman who could set a bone and brew a fever-reducing tea branded a witch? Because a cure from her hands was competition. It decentralized power. It proved that divinity wasn't a prerequisite for healing. Only knowledge was. You sit with him, listening to the rasp of his breathing, each shallow inhale a prayer the priest would never understand. This isn't a miracle. This is medicine, and it is a death sentence if you are caught choosing it over the holy water and useless prayers. It's no different from a modern world where a cheap, simple preventative solution is called misinformation to protect a more profitable, controllable one. The real terror isn't the invisible pestilence. It's the person you see across the muddy lane, your neighbor, John. You watch him through a crack in your shutters, and as you hear the unmistakable thud of a boot kicking your door, you realize the weaver's most important secret isn't who they are. It's what you're willing to become to protect their work. You see children splashing their faces at a public fountain. It's water just as clean as what flows from your own tap. You pass a soap maker's shop, and the air, instead of being foul, smells sharp and clean. A mix of animal fat, ash, and dried lavender. You feel the rough, heavy bar in your own hand later that evening. It's not luxurious, but it scours the dirt from your skin in a way that feels honest and real. Instead, you see your own distorted face, a stranger staring back from inside a cage of metal. He asks you to swear your oath, to a king you've never met, to a code you know is a lie, to a God who, if he is watching, must have a brutal sense of humor. Your hand is on the Bible. Your voice joins the choir of lies that has echoed through this chamber for 100 years. You swear it all. As you rise, the chainmail on your arms whispers against the plates on your chest. The most dangerous maps are not the ones that are wrong. They are the ones that are right. The vellum unrolls with a sound like old bones cracking. Dust, so ancient it feels sacred, puffs into the candlelight, dancing in the flickering orange glow. Your heart hammers against your ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the tomb-like silence of your master's secret workshop. To be found here is death. To be found with this is a fate worse than death, a damnation of the soul. You run a trembling finger over the ink. The medieval version of a leaked intelligence file, a confirmation of the rot at the very heart of the establishment, written by the assassins themselves. Your breath catches in your throat, a dry, ragged thing. You feel like a ghost, witnessing a silent, century-long massacre. These weren't just names. They were the future. How many discoveries were lost? How many innovations were buried with them? The world you live in now was built on the ashes of the world they were trying to create. The weight of it is crushing, a physical pressure in the damp air. A cure from a monk's hands, however, was a miracle. It was proof of God's favor, a divine intervention that reinforced the Church's absolute authority over life and death. The sweet, sick smell of rotting flesh in a peasant hut was not a sign of medieval stupidity. It was a consequence of a deliberate, centuries-long campaign to control the means of survival. It's the same business model that allows a modern company to patent a life-saving gene, to charge a fortune for a cure that could be made for pennies, to lobby against natural alternatives they can't own. You see his wife crossing herself every time your cottage door opens. You know they attend every mass the priest calls. Their fear of God is greater than their fear of death. You see the suspicion in his eyes when he notes your chimney has smoke, that your family still seems whole. And the question hangs in the air, more chilling than the plague itself. Will he be the one to report you? Will his piety be the death of you all? Tonight, a frantic pounding begins at the barricade. The men who wrote history gave women 3 roles: wife, saint, or witch. They deliberately forgot the 4th and most dangerous one of all: owner. The air in your brewery is thick and sweet with the smell of boiling wort, a scent more valuable to you than any incense. It is the smell of your freedom. You run a calloused thumb over a silver coin, still warm from a merchant's hand, and drop it into a heavy leather pouch. The clatter it makes against the others is a song only you can hear. This is your domain. In your small home, there is a private latrine, a simple stone chute that carries waste away from the house, a luxury that a wealthy Victorian nobleman living with a festering cesspit beneath his floorboards 500 years later would never know. This isn't a fantasy. This is the reality they erased from the history books. Why? Why invent the myth of the filthy peasant? Because the idea of a dark age is essential to the narrative of progress. It's a story our authorities tell to reinforce their own power. It's an intimate, metallic hiss, the sound of a snake shedding its skin. Your lord clasps your shoulder, his grip like iron. His eyes are not filled with pride. They are filled with calculation. He owns you now. Not just your sword arm, but your soul, bought and paid for with a title and a scrap of land. Your first sacred duty, he murmurs, is not to defend a castle or rescue a maiden. It is to ride to the woodsman's cottage at the edge of the fiefdom, the one whose son went missing last month. It isn't the T&O map the priests show you, the one that puts Jerusalem at the center of God's perfect 3-part world. That map is a holy comfort. This is heresy made skin. Every schoolchild, every scholar, every king is taught the same lie. The world is a flat disk of 3 continents, surrounded by an impassable ocean. This is the foundational myth, the bedrock of church authority. But what you hold in your hands whispers a different, terrible truth. The lines were copied from a source map so old, your master claimed it was Roman, or perhaps Phoenician. You are holding the murder weapon that killed a Renaissance before it was ever born. With a trembling hand, you turn to the final page. There is only one entry. The ink is slightly different, the hand a little less steady, as if written with some final, terrible purpose. The name is not that of a peasant, a scholar, or an artisan. It's a name you recognize. It's a name every student of history knows. Beside it, there is no falsified cause of death. There is only a date. The system isn't broken. It was built this way. It's not about your health. It's about who owns the patent on your life. Somewhere deep in the monastery's scriptorium, long after the bells for Compline have fallen silent, a younger monk risks his soul. The only light is a single tallow candle, its flame dancing as a cold draft snakes through the stone arches. You can hear it, an ASMR whisper from a lost world, the wet, rhythmic scratch of a quill nib on vellum. Scrape, dip, scrape, dip, scratch. A sound that could get him burned alive. A man's voice, raw with grief, begs to be let in. He says his wife and child are dead in the next village, and he is the only one left. He is your wife's brother. Letting him in might bring the plague over your threshold. Turning him away means condemning your own blood to die alone on the road. The priest preaches of damnation, but you know the truth. Hell is not a lake of fire. It's a choice like this. The vats, the barrels, the contracts signed in your own hand, all of it, yours. You are not a footnote in a man's story. You are the author of your own. What they don't want you to know is that you are not an exception. You are the rule. This is the great lie of the Middle Ages, the secret buried under centuries of ink and papal seals. Before the 14th century, you were an immense economic and social power. You are the brewers, the bakers, the textile magnates. If the past was nothing but ignorance and squalor, it makes our modern world seem like an inevitable miracle. And it makes our leaders seem like the sole proprietors of wisdom. To admit that a 13th century town had better public water management than a 19th century metropolis is to admit that progress isn't a straight line. It's to suggest that we've lost as much as we have gained. It's like discovering a forgotten tribe in the Amazon has a cure for cancer. It threatens the entire foundation of established knowledge. It's a danger to the establishment. The one who has been asking too many questions about the sealed-off quarry and what the bishop's men were digging for in the dead of night. You are to take his official apology, a pouch of silver, and you are to make sure, with the full authority of your holy vow, that his questions stop forever. It shows coastlines that simply should not exist. 99% of people will live and die believing the official story, but you are staring at the proof that it is a cage built of ink and fear. Your finger traces a long, curving shore far to the west, across an ocean they call the abyss. It is unmistakable. You saw a fragment of a similar chart just last year, secretly shown to you by a scholar from Spain. A date that is 3 years before that same man, lauded for his piety and wisdom, was elected pope. He is not copying the Gospels. Before him lies a forbidden text, translated from Arabic, the work of al-Zarawi, a physician from 1,000 years ago, filled with detailed diagrams of surgical tools, of the human nervous system, of techniques for sterile procedure. Every stroke of his quill is an act of treason against the official narrative. He preserves the knowledge that his own church is trying to erase. He feels the familiar cramp in his fingers, sees the smear of oak gall ink on his skin, like a dark stain of heresy. The Lord believes he owns the ground beneath your feet. The priest declares he owns the fate of your soul. They are both wrong. What they don't want you to know is that the most powerful kingdom in the world has no king, no borders, and its only law is a promise whispered in the dark. The wall behind you is cold and damp, leaching warmth from your bones. The alley smells of stale beer and desperation. You pull your thin wool cloak tighter. Your breath a ghost in the moonlight. 99% of people who read history books never learn this, but new data mapping technology has finally forced the long dead to give up their secrets. Guild records, once thought to be simple ledgers, reveal that in some English towns, over 40% of all businesses were run by women. You hold property. You sue men in court and win. You run vast trade networks that cross borders and seas. But a cold draft is beginning to snake through the cracks of your world. It has nothing to do with the weather, but the proof is indestructible because it is etched in bone. You are in a cool, quiet room, 1,000 years from home. Before you lies a skeleton, unearthed from a 12th century Italian burial ground. A peasant, they say. Unimportant. You run a gloved finger along the jawline. The teeth are not the blackened stumps you were promised. They are strong, straight, and show remarkably little decay, far healthier than the sugar-rotted teeth of a modern teenager. But that is not the secret. You lean closer, your breath held tight in your chest. In one of the molars, you see it. The most famous peasant uprisings didn't begin with a starving farmer finding his courage. They began with a full purse, a quiet room, and a man like you. You sit in the corner of the tavern, the air thick with the smell of sour wine, sweat, and the damp wool of angry men. Your clothes are rough, your hands are calloused, just so. A performance of poverty you have perfected over years. You listen. You let the poison of their genuine grievance fill the room. A new tax, a cruel bailiff, bread that is more sawdust than flour. He told you it was found used as stiffening inside the leather binding of a 13th century Bible. The church literally using the forbidden truth to support its own holy lies. That fragment showed this same impossible coastline, the gentle sweeping curve of a land they have no name for, a land they insist cannot be. You feel a metallic taste on your tongue. Fear. You now understand that "Here be dragons" on the official maps isn't a confession of ignorance. It's a threat. A skull and crossbones. A warning from the authorities to stay out of the forbidden zones of knowledge. So, the final, mind-blowing truth is this. The Dark Ages never happened. They were an invention, a historical fiction, a lie agreed upon. You stand at the end of this long road, looking back, and realize the entire concept of a 1,000-year intellectual wasteland was a narrative crafted by Renaissance and Enlightenment thinkers for a single purpose: to legitimize their own power, to make themselves appear as saviors. They first had to create a monster of ignorance in the past. The book he's copying tonight holds the key to stopping a hemorrhage, a technique that could save nearly every woman who dies in childbirth. But as his quill forms the final line of a sentence, another sound cuts through the silence, a soft, deliberate footstep in the cloister outside. He freezes, the quill hovering over the page. The candlelight flickers across a perfect, terrifyingly accurate drawing of the human heart. He knows who is out there. Across from you, Thomas the Fletcher doesn't look at your face. No one ever does. You look at hands. His are calloused and strong, but his knuckles are white with tension. In your hand, you clutch a small, lumpy sack. The faint, dry rustle of the barley inside is the only sound you allow yourself to hear over the frantic drumming in your ears. You didn't grow this barley on your own meager plot. You couldn't. The Lord's reeve watches too closely. You see it in the eyes of the priest, whose sermons have started to speak of the proper place of women. You feel it in the whispers of the men in your own guild, men you once called brothers, who now look at your success as if it were a sickness. The establishment, a quiet union of the church and the nobility, has seen your power, and they have judged it a threat to the patriarchal world they are trying to build. They have decided you have too much, so they begin to take it. A dark, perfect circle. A filling. It's made of a beeswax and herb compound, packed into a meticulously cleaned cavity. Your mind reels, the metallic scraping of a primitive dental tool against enamel. The steady hand of a surgeon performing a procedure that supposedly won't be invented for another 600 years. This isn't an anomaly. Dozens of other skeletons in the same burial show the same impossible work. This was not a fluke. It was a practice, a hidden school of medicine operating in the shadows of the so-called Dark Ages. Who were these surgeons? Their anger is real. It is a beautiful, pliable thing. It is the clay you will use to sculpt a masterpiece of destruction for a master you will never meet. The man beside you, a weaver named Thomas, with fire in his eyes and too much cheap wine in his belly, slams his fist on the rough-hewn table. "We should burn the Fat Merchants' Guildhall to the ground," he roars. The others cheer, a ragged, desperate sound. You nod slowly, your face a mask of grim agreement. It's the same way a king guards his treasury, but the treasure here is not gold. It is the truth of the world itself. They don't hide it because it's not real. They hide it because it is. To admit these other lands exist is to admit there may be other peoples, perhaps even other Adams and other Eves outside of God's grace. It would shatter the story that holds the world together. A floorboard creaks in the hallway outside. You freeze, every muscle tightening. They found willing partners in the church, which was desperate to bury the evidence of its own crimes. The Glimmer manuscripts, the truth of the silent plague, the systematic war against knowledge. Together, they forged the official history you were taught in school. The medieval world wasn't dark because of a lack of light. It was dark because the lights were deliberately, violently, and systematically extinguished. This is the ultimate conspiracy. Power doesn't just write history, it erases it. It manufactures ignorance and then sells itself as the only source of truth. Not a demon, not a ghost, but something far more dangerous. A man who believes that this knowledge is a sin and that the only cure for it is fire. This came from a dozen shared handfuls, collected in secret, a silent act of mass rebellion fought between the furrows of a field. You trade the sack for a length of cured gut string for your husband's bow. No coins change hands. Coins are for the taxman, for the church tithe, for the official world that starves you. Down here, beneath the cobblestones, value is real. It's a mended pot for a day's labor. It's a shared plow horse for a portion of the harvest. Not with a sword, but with a pen. A new law is passed, quietly, stating a woman's property now belongs to her husband upon marriage. The guild charters are rewritten. Suddenly, a daughter can no longer inherit her father's workshop. Your most sacred knowledge, the art of healing, the lore of herbs passed down from your grandmother, is slowly, systematically rebranded. It is no longer wisdom. It is witchcraft. The shift is so subtle, you almost don't notice it until you are already choking on the smoke. This is a new kind of war, a war of erasure. Where did they learn this knowledge? Was it forbidden by the church, practiced in secret moonlit rituals and passed down through whispers? And the question that will keep you awake tonight is not just who they were, but what else they knew. If they could perform dental surgery that rivaled the 19th century, what other medical secrets did they possess? What fevers could they break? What wounds could they heal? What forgotten cures were silenced and buried right alongside their bones? You've been nurturing Tomas's fury for a week, buying him drinks, feeding his pride, whispering that he is the one man brave enough to lead. He thinks you are his friend, his brother in suffering. He has no idea you are his executioner. Later, in a piss-stinking alley behind the tavern, another man finds you. He doesn't speak. He presses a small, heavy leather pouch into your hand and melts back into the shadows. You don't open it, but you feel the familiar, comforting weight of silver. The candle flame gutters, and your shadow leaps up the stone wall like a trapped soul. You quickly, clumsily, begin to roll the map. The dry vellum scrapes against the rough wood of the table, a sound loud as a scream in the suffocating quiet. You have to hide it. But where? Burning it feels like a sin against humanity. Keeping it is a death sentence. The footsteps stop outside your door. You hold your breath, staring at the iron latch, knowing that what they're truly coming for isn't just a map. They're coming to erase a world. And this ancient blueprint of control is operating right now, in the silent hum of the server farm, more effectively than ever before. It operates in the algorithms that decide what news you see, creating a personalized reality bubble just for you, warm and comfortable. It operates in the fact-checkers funded by the very interests being challenged. It operates in the constant flow of media that sanitizes war, simplifies complex issues, and brands inconvenient truths as misinformation. The methods are just more sophisticated than a knight's sword or a monk's torch. You stand in a vast, cold silence, broken only by the sound of your own breathing. Your neck is craned, your eyes lost in the divine geometry above. Sunlight, shattered into 1,000 colors, bleeds across the stone floor from the rose window. You've been told this is a monument to God, a testament to faith built over generations. But the truth is, you're standing inside a forbidden library, a codex written in stone and glass. 99% of people who walk these floors see only the story the church wants them to see. 99% of the transactions that keep you alive happen in this shadow world. A decentralized network built entirely on trust. This is the secret that terrifies the powerful more than any army. It is the living, breathing proof that humanity can organize, survive, and even thrive without their permission. From his pulpit, Father Michael condemns the sin of usury. He thunders about the damnation awaiting any soul who lends at interest, his voice echoing off the stone arches. He calls it a perversion, a devil's bargain that preys on the desperate. A campaign of historical gaslighting, so successful that for 700 years, the world will forget you were ever here at all. They will forget you were ever powerful. It's the same chilling tactic used in modern boardrooms, where a woman's idea is met with silence, only to be praised when a man repeats it as his own. They aren't just taking your power. They are trying to erase the very memory that it ever existed. But you did not go quietly. The greatest plague wasn't a disease of the body. It was a purge of the mind. The scrape of the trowel against stone is the only sound in your world. Scrape, shh, thud. It's the sound of your own burial, but you are not yet dead. You stand in the suffocating dark of your own monastic cell, the space where you prayed and copied scripture, now your tomb. The air is thick with the wet, earthy smell of mortar and the metallic tang of your own terror. Inside, you can hear the soft metallic scrape of the coins against each other, a sound like a serpent shedding its skin. This is the real sound of rebellion. Here is the secret they will never carve into stone, the truth that 99% of people, then and now, will never know. You believe medieval politics is fought on the battlefield, a clash of steel and royal banners. But the real war is fought here, in the dark, with whispers and silver. Many of the most celebrated peasant revolts that fill the history books were not spontaneous explosions of popular rage. For a century, the church hunted for a man, a ghost who flooded the continent with forbidden knowledge, a phantom they called the Weaver. In their sermons, they painted him as a disgraced monk, a heretic scholar poisoning minds from a hidden scriptorium. They were looking in the wrong place. The truth is a secret they buried so deep, it has taken 1,000 years to surface. The Weaver was never a man. It was a code name, a name for a silent, continent-wide conspiracy of women. The candle gutters. They learned from the masters of the silent plague that the most effective way to control the future is to completely control the past. They don't need to burn books anymore, when they can simply bury them in search results. They don't need to hunt down heretics when they can deplatform them, silencing them with a single click. The Glimmer is still out there, the shared knowledge that can empower us. But the custodes veritatis, the keepers of truth, are still here too. They just wear suits and write code now, instead of robes and scripture. They feel the awe, they hear the sermons, and they leave, oblivious. They don't know that the architects of these great structures, the master masons, embedded a secret, parallel knowledge system into the very heart of their designs. They built a Trojan horse for forgotten wisdom and wheeled it right into the center of their enemy's fortress. Look closer. Look past the saints and the angels in the great rose window. It's intricate. Hypnotic patterns are not just decorative flair. A 2018 analysis of the windows at Chartres Cathedral, a place much like this, proved they function as a precise astronomical calendar. What 99% of his flock will never learn is that the Holy Church is the largest, most predatory financial institution on the planet. They don't use gold as collateral. They use your immortal soul. They lend to kings and charge interest in the form of political power, and they lend to you in the form of indulgences, promising a shorter stay in purgatory for a price. It's the perfect, unassailable business model, a 13th century ancestor of every modern banking system that lobbies against the freedom of cryptocurrency while engaging in the very same reckless speculation they condemn. Your skin crawls as you imagine tonight's meeting after the last watchman's bell has rung and the streets are slick with darkness. The metallic taste of fear mixes with the bitter taste of defiance in your mouth. You and the others, the weaver with indigo-stained fingers, the chandler who smells of beeswax and secrets, the healer whose garden is now a source of suspicion. You will meet in the alehouse backroom, the flickering candlelight making your shadows dance like conspirators on the damp stone walls. What clandestine society are you about to form to protect your knowledge? Through the shrinking rectangle of light, you see the silhouette of a man in a dark cowl. He doesn't look at you. He just works. Scrape. Shh. Thud. Another stone laid. The final wall is rising. They call it the Black Death, a punishment from God, a miasma on the air. That's the story they tell in the pulpits, the story that makes frightened people fall to their knees and empty their purses into the collection plate. But you know the truth. Brother Elric knew it. They were false flag operations. They were meticulously planned acts of political theater, instigated by the very nobility they claimed to threaten. You are an agent provocateur, a ghost who creates a fire and then points the finger at the men who burn. The lords need an excuse to crush dissent, to hang the troublemakers they've already identified, to seize land, to consolidate power. And you, with your carefully crafted persona and your purse of silver, give it to them. You are 19, and the stone floor of the Abbey scriptorium is so cold it feels like it's leaching the life from your bones. You are not writing, you're weaving. Before you, the loom stands like a silent accomplice. The abbess, a woman whose face is a roadmap of secrets, passes you a small bound manuscript. It's a text on herbal abortifacients, knowledge the church has declared satanic. Your job is not to copy the words, but to translate them, to transform them from ink on vellum into thread on linen. They have built the most efficient suppression machine in human history. They successfully lied about 1,000 years of our past to control the narrative. What are they lying about right now to control your future? A stunningly complex instrument, tracking solar and lunar cycles, solstices and equinoxes, with a knowledge the church publicly condemned as pagan sorcery. The kind of knowledge that could get a man dragged from his home at night. This was a silent, brilliant rebellion. These Masons, men descended from ancient guilds with pre-Christian roots, were the keepers of a different flame. They were hiding their heretical understanding of the cosmos in plain sight, using the church's own money to do it. The real threat was never economic. It was ideological. A single seed, traded in defiance, proves a forest can grow without a king's decree. But there is another layer to this world, a deeper secret. Most of the bartering happens in the gray light of dusk, a quick and nervous exchange. But some things only move in the dead of night, when the moon is a splinter and the watchmen are drunk or asleep. It is not gold, which only buys loyalty for a moment. What secrets must you bury to save them from the men who are coming to burn it all down? He was found in the ashes of the scriptorium, a tragic accident with a lamp. Sister Honoria knew it. Her small infirmary, a place of healing with herbs the church deemed unholy, burned to the ground with her inside. You are the third, and you will not die by fire. You will die by silence. What they don't want you to know is that concurrent with the pestilence of the body, a second, more insidious plague was sweeping Europe. A silent plague, a covert, systematic campaign to exterminate the carriers of what you called the Glimmer, the old knowledge. You whip up the fury, you aim it like a weapon, and then you step back and watch the lords ride in as saviors to crush the chaos they secretly funded. It is the most terrifyingly effective form of control ever devised, a blueprint that echoes through the centuries. It's the same dark art that modern powers use when they deploy armies of social media bots to incite online mobs, to sow division until a society tears itself apart. The goal is the same: create a crisis, then use the resulting fear to justify a crackdown on liberty. This is the secret 99% of people will never know. Even as they gaze at these artifacts in museums, they see a tapestry, a pretty piece of lace, a decorative border on a tunic. They see women's work, humble, domestic, harmless. They don't see the weapon, the complex patterns, the number of petals on a flower, the specific twist in a knot, the subtle shift from indigo to woad blue in a knight's cloak. It is a language, a deeply sophisticated steganography, a method of hiding data in plain sight. They built soaring monuments to the church's God while secretly encoding the very wisdom the church was trying to hunt down and erase from history. Think of it like modern hacktivists hiding terabytes of encrypted data in the source code of a corporate website. The power structure owns the building, the server, the public face. But the builders, the coders, they own the blueprints. They know the architecture. And they have left a back door. They've hidden their truth in a language only the initiated can read. It is not jewels, which only adorn the cages the powerful build for themselves. It is something far more volatile. Thomas is gone. You wait. Your heart is a trapped bird against your ribs. Another shadow detaches itself from the darkness. This one is smaller, older, a woman whose name you will never know. She does not carry a sack of grain or a bundle of firewood. She holds a small, heavy object wrapped in oilcloth. As she passes it to you, your fingers brush. Her skin is cold, like a corpse's. The word the church uses for you is heretic. It is a cage made of sound, designed to make your neighbors fear you, to make soldiers feel righteous when they burn your home. In 1,000 years, they will call people like you terrorists. The name changes, but the strategy is eternal. You are in a cellar beneath a weaver's shop in the Languedoc. The air is thick with the smell of damp earth, sheep's wool, and the nervous sweat of 20 souls pressed together in the dark. The healers who knew which leaves could break a fever. The builders who understood geometry that rivaled the Romans. The thinkers who dared to look at the stars and ask questions. The chaos of the real plague was the perfect cover. You are being walled up alive because you wrote it down. You named the enemy. They call themselves the Custodes Veritatis, the guardians of truth. They are the church's secret police. A militant monastic order whose mission is to ensure only one version of reality survives. Theirs. They are the whispers in the night, the shadow in the cloister. It always works. In the archives of the Doge of Venice, a letter exists that no common man was ever meant to see. It's a note to an agent in Florence, a man just like you. It contains a payment record and a short message of thanks for the entertaining bonfire he orchestrated. He didn't start a festival. He started a riot that gutted a rival merchant family's entire enterprise, allowing a Venetian ally to take its place. History recorded it as an uprising of the poor. The letter records it as a business transaction. They used the tools of their oppression as the very medium for their rebellion. You hear the soft, rhythmic thump-clack-thump of the beater pressing the weft into place. It's an ASMR quality sound, a heartbeat locking another secret into the fabric of history. A warning about an inquisitor's route is coded into a tapestry of a hunting scene, destined for a castle hundreds of miles away. A recipe for a poultice that can save a child from lung fever is hidden in the lace collar a merchant's wife will wear as she travels the trade routes. The geometry of a vaulted ceiling isn't just for support, it's a map of constellations. The sequence of columns isn't random, it's a numerological equation. You run your hand along a pillar. It feels like ice, even in the faint warmth of the sun. The stone is impossibly smooth in some places, rough and alive in others. You can almost feel the vibration of 1,000 hushed prayers, 1,000 secret conversations. You walk away from the light, deeper into the shadows that cling to the cathedral's edges. Here, the air is different, heavier. You trade it for the only thing of real value you have left, a small, sharp steel needle your husband smuggled out of a crusader's kit. You don't look inside the package. Not here. The risk is too great. But you can feel the clink of glass through the cloth, and you can smell it, a faint, sharp scent of oak galls and iron salts. It is the smell of the most dangerous commodity in the medieval world. The one thing that can capture a thought, solidify a secret, and turn a forbidden idea into a weapon that can outlast stone. A single tallow lamp sputters, casting long, dancing shadows that make the familiar faces around you look like spirits. Your stomach is a cold knot of dread, but you push it down. This is the only place you feel free. Here, in the forbidden quiet, you can breathe. At the center of the room stands Esclarmonde. She is a perfecta, a priest. And 99% of the world, now and for centuries to come, has no idea she can exist. In the world above, women are property. In the world of Rome, they are silent in the church, barred from the altar. They mark anyone whose knowledge offers an alternative to God's divine and often cruel plan. A quick, quiet death, and the body is tossed into a plague pit. Just another number, another anonymous soul lost to the great mortality. 99% of people will never learn that many of those rotting bodies weren't victims of a virus. They were victims of an idea. This is how true power works. It's a tactic you see mirrored even in the distant future. In regimes where political dissidents simply disappear, their deaths explained away as unfortunate accidents or suicides. You walk away from the tavern, the cheers and angry shouts fading behind you. You know that by morning, Thomas and a dozen others will be swinging from makeshift gallows, their faces purpled, made examples of. The rebellion will be crushed. The Lord will be praised for his swift justice, and no one will ever know the truth. You pull your cloak tighter, the silver a cold weight against your hip. As you turn a corner, you see a captain of the city guard standing beneath a flickering torch. He's not looking at the tavern. A midwife in a distant village receives it, reads the pattern with her fingertips, and saves a life the church would have gladly sacrificed. It was a distributed, decentralized network that the rigid, patriarchal power structure could not comprehend, let alone defeat. There was no single leader to burn, no central library to raid. The network was composed of abbesses with access to ancient texts, merchants' wives who could move goods without suspicion, and healers who carried knowledge like a contagion from one village to the next.